Hey, this is Michael Emery. Thanks for tuning into the Slow Baja. This podcast is powered by Tequila Fortaleza, handmade in small batches, and hands down, my favorite tequila. Sitting here, Slow Baja podcasting with Scott Toepfer and Hayden Roberts in Santa Paula on a rainy day, and we're just going to talk about bikes and Baja and desert sleds and wherever this goes. So,
sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you guys making an effort to get together on a rainy day with these crazy life events that are going on right now. Coronavirus, everybody hunkering down. We're drinking tea and
sitting in separate rooms.
Yeah, Joy's out picking up tacos for us, and we're just going to talk for a bit.
Yeah, it's a great time for radio.
Mm-hmm. Great time for radio.
Great face for radio.
Settle in as we become socially distant.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so let's talk about, I ran into you guys at the Baja, the Mexican, NORRA Mexican
500.
Do they call it the Mexican 500? Ran into you guys at the NORRA Baja 500, and you guys were on, I think, the only things that were older than my old Land Cruiser.
Yeah, we were both on what mid-60s bikes. I was on a Triumph, Scott was on a BSA.
Yeah, the poor BSA.
67 and a 68, as I recall. Was that right?
Somewhere around there, yeah. I forget now.
I think the Hornet's a 67.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's sort of a Hornet, sort of a Spitfire.
Yeah, the vintage bikes that get so broken, it's just kind of a constant replacement, you know. I don't know what year it is anymore, but it's a Triumph still.
Well, it looks old, which I think is important.
Yeah.
And,
the suspension is old.
Yeah, and you guys are not that old, and it just amazed me. I just looked past a sea of, new stuff that's not interesting to me at all, other than Michelle Bush standing behind her husband on that bike, whatever their deal is. That's just, I love it, but that just seems crazy to have your wife standing behind you on a bike. I did two up with my wife on my old BMW Perry Dakar when we were just dating, and I thought, wow, this is terrible.
I did two up once with Joy to Ohio on the back of a BMW, and she had never gone on the back of a bike again.
I mean, it's as funny as it is. They're like the coolest couple in the world, and we're, never think that they'd be terribly fast, because how could you go fast two up on a dirt bike? And they passed me like I was standing still. It was a feat. I mean, saying like you ride with
Michelle's
your partner.
waving to you.
Yeah, she waves at us and she's screaming, "Yeah!"
Yeah, you can hear that voice. I bet.
Yeah. 3 dunes away.
Yeah, well, she tells us, we're going to let you guys pass us so that we can see you ride. And they didn't, it maybe saw me ride for a quarter of a corner and then just shot rocks at me. It was great. I love them.
Yeah, no, it's funny. A minute in, we're talking about the craziness of Michelle standing on the back of the bike and her enthusiasm and her voice.
It's a sight to be seen.
The whole thing is just so wonderful, which I think gets me to the next point about just Baja and people who go to Baja to do things.
Baja's special. It's funny because it's so close and it's so accessible. If you live in the Southwest, but even anywhere in the United States, it's very easy to get to Baja, yet I don't understand why there's like a threshold or a sort of...
Yeah, we were saying we did the Mint last week in Vegas, and we could have been in Ensenada in exactly the same amount of time.
Yeah.
And made more of an adventure out of it.
Yeah, it's a special place. It's funny because it really is. It's California as we know it, just without all the people, and it's just a different world. But it attracts people that are one notch away from like if you'd say like the mainstream or whatever it is, the normal. Like I live in the suburbs, so there's people that love their suburban life and keep it simple, and then there's the people that are one notch removed from that. And they love Mexico. And like some of my neighbors, like you just know them. You know people that when you meet them, you're like, yeah, you're a Baja person because you just, like getting away.
Yeah, I've never been down there. The first time I've lived in California now, Southern California for 20 years and coming over from England. And I'd never been to Mexico until I did the 1,000, the first one.
That was your first time?
That was the first time Mexico.
What year was that?
That was 2015.
Yeah, I think so.
So 2016, on a Triumph, and a few of us went and tried it. and never in Mexico, never been to Mexico. And I got stranded down in Santa Maria, I don't know. Senorita, I don't know, somewhere I can't pronounce. Bike broke, and I got stranded next to a village for about 22 hours or something out of like radio contact. Slept next to the bike, woke up 3 a.m, somebody put a blanket on me, and left me a little plate of enchiladas or something. Got up in the morning, the whole freaking village had turned out. I had more breakfast than I could eat. I think they found me about 12 hours after this, and I was in a school teaching an English class to the local kids, and they were feeding me cartons of milk. It was pretty good down there.
I love Mexico.
So I think again the reputation that Mexico struggles with is just it's dangerous, and the people are cartels, and you're going to be hanging from a light post before you know it. But here you are, broken down. Now, had you had any other vehicle besides a British bike, you probably would have had a local that would have offered you a way to fix it or something.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But that, somebody brought you a blanket, somebody brought you food, and, before you're out of there, you're in the local schoolhouse teaching is kind of a real comment on what the real Baja is like. And I think that's a thing that's what half of my draw to that place is. The people, they live with less. Life is harder. They're friendly. They're not inside air conditioning watching a flat screen.
They take care of each other.
They do take care of each other because, they need to.
Yeah, I mean, I went to college in San Diego, and so I had Mexican roommates, and you get to hang out with Abuelita, and she would make you tacos, and we would have these great park visits and all these things. And that was my first real authentic introduction to it, to the culture. And it's the sweetest thing in the world. And Baja, we went to Baja a few times in the early 2000s, and it was great. The college dropped you off, you went and partied, and college picked you up and brought you back. And then that kind of went away over the last few years. But my stance on a lot of places is if you're looking for trouble, it's pretty easy to find, So, and Baja is no different than that. But if you really get into, the day-to-day lives of people and their families, they're all the sweetest people. And just like here, if you saw someone stranded, actually maybe even more so in Mexico, if you see someone stranded, people help. And it's very easy to pass by people.
Nightmares about the police and stuff down there, which is what I always kind of just stayed away from riding bikes down there. The first guy to come over was a cop, and he's like, well, I've got whatever it was. He's like, you're welcome to take whatever parts off it, finish the race. So, no problems down there with them. Yeah,
so thinking back on your mention of the police, Baja XL, I'm in my old Land Cruiser. We're on the very end, hour 15 of a 16-hour day, got lost out in the middle of the night, driving around. We're on a paper map with headlamps, And we finally found the town that we were supposed to be in, and we had a hotel, which was awesome after being in a Land Cruiser for the whole day. So we weren't camping with the rest of the group, but we couldn't find the hotel. And so at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a police officer, and after we circled his police station for the third time, he walked out and waved to us. And we pulled in. And you don't really want to talk to a cop at 3 o'clock in the morning in a little town after you've been driving, forever and you're just thrashed. But we told him the name of the hotel, and he got in his car, and we followed him, and we're down this dirt road and all this. And I thought, oh no, now we're going to get robbed, and shot at the end of your mind goes to these
definitely
dark places.
Been there, yeah.
And the cop pulls up, and it's this little hotel, beautifully done, architecturally significant hotel, and it's on a river which feeds into the ocean, and people go there basically for whale watching. So it's remote from the actual town. It's out, a couple miles out on a dirt road. And the cop went in and woke up. We thought he was the security guard. Turns out it's the owner who's been sleeping at his desk waiting for us to arrive.
Right?
Now it's 3-something in the morning, and the cop's waking him up, and he shows us to our room, and we had a double Fortaleza, hit the hay, and that same owner is up 4 hours later making us breakfast like it's nothing. Like, hey, guys. Hey, and thanks for sending these other racers to my hotel and sending me some business. He couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah, same thing. And I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names of villages, and Scott probably knows them better than me. When the first did the 1,000, we got the first night, got in late. It was a late start. And same thing, no hotel. We was planning on sleeping in a dirt lot. And same thing, a policeman came over and was like, hey, I know a guy who's got a guest house. Do you want to use it? Took us around the corner. And I remember he took us to this back room, and he looked like a 1980s, like Laura Ashley catalogue. In this, you never see so many floral prints in this room. It's the nicest thing, and the guy got sent thing up in the morning. I think there was 3 of us. And it was a whole house. I think he charged us $40 or something for the night and breakfast. And he, didn't even want to take that. I think we just had it in our pockets, but yeah.
Yeah, the propensity for people to be, sweet is actually pretty incredible. I mean, we're often, it's easy for us to, default to scared. I don't want to do that, and so just to like take a step into something that's a little uncomfortable, I think it goes a long way. And you realize that it's a very open culture, especially Baja. Like everyone's just, it's beautiful. Like you said, they live on less and they're happy with what they have, and they're sweet when you come in, and, it's being respectful goes a long way, on both sides. And I think it's created a really sweet atmosphere for racers when we go down there, because it's high fives and jokes with kids. And if you can speak a little bit of Spanish, like it's always good for a laugh. And
throw a few stickers in your pockets.
The stickers thing's incredible.
The sticker thing's big.
I love the stickers.
The sticker thing's big.
I was that kid. I went into surf shops. I went into motorcycle stores begging for stickers, probably stole a couple stickers off of jackets. And
you can leave off stickers in Baja. Like you fill pockets full of stickers, it's as good as dollars.
Yeah.
People are stoked to see you.
Yeah, that's the best.
Well, let me back up a little bit and say, how do you two know each other, and how did you come to devoting your life to these old British bikes? And you refer to them as, tell me how you refer to these bikes. So desert sleds, British bikes, what's your shorthand for what you do?
Yeah, I think that the ones they're all old British bikes, Triumphs, BSAs mainly. But yeah, they're all what everybody's calling them desert sleds. They're just old, what was a dirt bike in the 60s, pre Japanese Hondas, big bores, that kind of thing. Just open twin desert bikes, ready to strip down. It is a stripped down version of the road bike. You take the lights off, throw a longer shock on, and a set of, motocross tyres and a big comfy seats, and you got a dirt bike
and a skid plate.
And it's definitely a skid plate, yeah, skid plate, especially in Baja.
And high pipes. I'm assuming at some point somebody made higher pipes for these things and got them off.
At some point, yeah. I mean, yeah, a bit of ground clearance. It was really a California thing. They're a very gentlemanly British bike. What you think of the classic Triumph Bonneville, you don't think of a dirt bike. But it got to California and quickly realised that they work real well, and they're pretty bulletproof. So
we're looking at the bike in your living room. So let's talk about what number 16 is here in your living room, Hayden. So
number 16 is a 1960 Triumph TR6, which is just a single cob version of the Bonneville, and it belonged to a guy called Buck Smith, who was kind of one of the top guys of the time, won a couple of national championships, and I just found it in a barn down in Beverly Hills of all places. And it's just not been touched since, I think, 65. But yeah, it's got every trick in the book on it. Like if you could make it's the equivalent of a works bike for 1960. It's got every little modification from rake in the front end.
What dealership did that bike come from?
This was from Johnson Motors, which was the import of all Triumphs to the West Coast up until they closed. From the inception, really. And yeah, so that. I just kind of make copies of that with a few little, modern conveniences, electronic ignition being one of the biggest kind of upgrades, and the new carbs and that kind of thing. But ultimately, it looks very much like a bike that would be raced. The one I take to Baja all the time looks very much like a bike that'd be raced in 65, 66.
Yeah, and when, to answer the other part of your question, because, Hayden's really the expert on the the bikes, and I've pretty much learned anything and everything about these from him. I think we met on our trip to Japan.
Yeah, again, for old bikes.
Yeah, with old bikes. This is, what, 2012, 13, something like that? Yeah, we got invited, we kind of put together a big group of friends to go to Japan and race on like a vet motocross track. And I brought an old, I think a first year Evo Sportster with 15-inch rear shocks and stock front end, and race on a motocross track, which didn't fare well, to say the least.
Yeah,
I did really well in practice until we raced, and as Hayden can attest, I don't do well in races because I'm more competitive than skilled. And so, but I had pictures of Hayden racing on the Triumph, and I'd owned an old BSA, never really got too far into it. But then after we got back from Japan, I'd been getting more into flat track, and I bought my first flat track bike from Hayden. I think that it was either the day after Christmas or something, maybe that following year. Yeah, I treated myself. Yeah, I'm really good at that. You can ask my wife. I'm great at treating myself to motorcycles in lieu of anything
end of your
else.
Tax write-off, baby. I got to get some tax write-offs.
Yeah, working in the motorcycle industry, I definitely have written off a couple props. And so I got into, so Hayden and I kind of got into that, and I think when we became better friends when he started coming up and hanging out with Joy, who's a mutual friend and now Hayden's wife. And Joy kind of just, brought us together in like a more of a hanging out thing, because Hayden moved out from Los Angeles, and Joy and I lived down the street from each other at the time.
You were in Ventura, right?
In Ventura, yeah.
And we're in Santa Paula right
We're in Santa Paula now, yeah.
20 miles? 20 miles from Ventura?
Yeah, 20 miles from Ventura.
Yeah.
Quick farm road ride, which is how I got here today. And
yeah, in the citrus orchards, it's all like Sunkeys country, I think.
Yeah.
It's all agriculture. It's pretty neat around here. You got the mountains 10 minutes away. And there's some neat little back roads to go and play in.
So over the past few years, Hayden's been building these bikes for himself for a long time, and he and I have a mutual friend and old dealership guru mechanic named John that we had both worked with kind of separately, and then now we kind of build and work on these things together. And I think our group of friends that went down and did Baja the first time for the 1000, for the NORRA 1000, I drove chase and took pictures and kind of got the bug. I was like, okay, I get what you guys are doing on this. And slowly I've been doing less flat tracking and trying to chase Hayden around in the desert and the riverbeds out here. So
yeah, there's nothing more fun than that's the good thing about one of these. It's almost like a vintage dual sport. There's nothing you really can't do on them. Little file trials and stuff up in the mountains is the perfect bike for it. And so they just suit Baja so well that the vintage class would be real. If you could get 15 guys in that vintage class on all British bikes, it'd be a hell of a sight.
Yeah, and people give us it's funny because you get high fives and odd looks and the off quote, "you're crazy" comment. Yeah, and you're just like, it's really not. Yeah, it's really not that crazy. Like, granted, you're going to have to replace your fork seals and you're going to have to grease a few things, and it's going to hurt a little. But that's how we did it.
Yeah, is on a vintage bike, you have the challenge of kind of extending you and the machinery without having to do the Paris Dakar. Like, you have to get to such an extreme now to break a modern bike. Really back a bit. Like, I don't want to go and get captured down in Libya or wherever the hell they're racing through, but you take a vintage bike down to buy, it's the same challenge, you know what I mean? But you ain't having to do that.
And you're keeping it running. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you really do have to listen to your bike, and you have to know how to do. I mean, minor if you break something big, you break it. There's only so much you can do, but just like anything. But with like little stuff, like, you got to pay attention to the bike. You got to be nice to it, and then when you can get away with it, like, you have to know your motorcycle. You don't just turn it on and
that
give
course down there.
I
just riding in Baja, I guess free riding with the same. It changes so much, but there's so much, down by the beach there. is such fun to ride on them through those ranch trails. Like they're the perfect bike for that. Really, that's a good thing about Baja. It's not technical. It's kind of fast. A little bit sandy, but on a vintage bike, yeah, it's hard, but it's makeable, and you feel like you completed something after.
Yeah.
That's the one thing going for them. You do that on a new KTM, you're like, well,
cool.
There was there's no chance I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah. I mean, you end up, I think, even with a modern bike, you can almost exceed your talent by pushing that. I mean, if you had a brand new KTM 500, I mean, I'm not a terribly good rider, just in general. But you put me on a brand new bike with double the suspension, half the weight, and 3 times the horsepower, like, I could hurt myself in a big way. And like, I guess I still hurt myself on the Triumph a little bit, but it's, the bike's a big equalizer. And if I can keep it running, like I tore my airbox off in Nevada recently, and I could tell that the bike was running weird, so I stopped and fixed it, and otherwise you wouldn't even know that. So it's an equalizer for sure.
I think I feel a little bit like that in my old Land Cruiser, and part of the approach of painting slow Baja on the side is setting my own expectations as much as the expectations of others.
Yeah.
But, the vehicle that I have was the tool of choice 50 years ago for what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not doing anything new. I'm just haven't evolved the way that all the others have evolved. And I think there is something special about having to listen to your machine a little bit and not push things. And I feel a bit like you. Maybe I don't want to get over my head in my skills.
Oh, yeah.
I'm enjoying the event. I'm enjoying the camaraderie. I'm enjoying the challenge of it all. But
sure.
I'm not sure I have the skills. Frankly, if somebody stuck me in a trophy truck, I might ball it up very quickly.
And don't get me wrong, if someone would let me ball up a trophy truck, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind taking a class in real off-road, long travel racing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, there's something special, and maybe it's too much of a romantic notion to get hung on sometimes. But in earnest, like I've been down to Baja now a handful of times with a bike, and I love going down there.
Well, it's set their expectations for sure. Like the slow Baja thing, before we left, I had Slowpoke Rodriguez painted on the gas tank, the biker up for that same reason. You got to keep it within your limits. I just,
Well, the finish line's the challenge.
Yeah, to just finish it on the vintage bike that's the win. There's no use going down there and screaming along and blowing up motors because you can. If you want to go balls out, there's hundreds of miles of it that you can. But you got to have a bit of mechanical sympathy. You got to you got to both make it. That for me is the challenge of the vintage class.
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be an interesting experiment to get 3 or 4 of your friends together on old bikes and 3 or 4 old Scouts, Land Cruisers, Land Rovers, what have you.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we need I hate to say this, folks at NORRA, I'm not sure that we need the entire organization of NORRA around us, but maybe we just need 3 or 4 days in a couple of locations, good beds, and a few bottles of tequila, and find our tacos as we go.
I think that's a much better way of doing it. You kind of get your own pace at your own speed and just have a little rally raid around there kind of on your own time. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I mean, not to take away from the organization, because I don't think that's the point we're making, but there's with the way things are right now in the racing community, there's not as much sympathy for the old stuff, and they're happy to have a vintage class as long as you can keep up. And sometimes maybe that's not the message that the vintage class that you want to give to vintage riders, and not necessarily the guidelines and the parameters that the vintage guys want to hang out in. So, maybe we've had these conversations. Yeah,
you look at those all like Bruce Brown pictures in the 60s, thinking of fishing village to fishing village and on the hubs, and they got the old truck in the back. And that to me is the way to do it. Or even seeing Ed's dad, was it Mike Pullman?
Yeah, Mike's. Yeah,
running that in the early in the 60s, like in that Land Cruiser.
Right.
That to me looks like the way to do it. It's a lot more civilized. It looks a lot more fun. You're out in the middle of the sandstorm and a couple of guys bob past in a Land Cruiser drinking tequila, asking directions. You're like, that's what we should be doing.
Right. And, and I think I love racing because, I mean, even though I don't win, or whatever. I think I love racing and I love that competitive piece of it, but at the same time, going to do one race or two races a year should not be the only time we're spending time in Baja. I mean, like you're saying, like those adventures and like just getting a handful of people out there and just going and cruising and doing the fishing villages and trying to catch your own dinner and failing at it, and then you just go buy tacos instead. Like I'm super down for that.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I mean, when I got stranded, me and my buddy Eric, he drove me back up, and he has a place in like the Bay of Conception, and just we holed there for a couple of days after, and just went out. I got stung by stingrays, and I didn't catch crap, but
I'm gonna credit that stingray with blooming your and Joy's romance in a big way.
Maybe.
I think that stingray, I saw it. That stingray was a helper.
Yeah,
it helped you out.
Had to lie down and wait for the pain to go away.
What happened was I blew a motor up somewhere on the beach in the Bay of LA.
Yeah.
Bay of LA, yeah. And I was changing the motor out on the beach, and just covered in grime and oil. And Joy's like, "Go and have a swim." I was like, "No, I'll get stung. Guaranteed. I don't go in the water. I'll get bitten by a shark or something."
Shuffle your feet.
That's what I'm told. Yeah,
you didn't learn that in England. You got to shuffle your feet.
Well, I was shuffling all around, and not getting stung. I was fine. Then Joy takes a flying leap, hammers me. I step back, straight on a stingray.
Oh,
so I'm sitting on the
blame
beach
it on Joy.
Yeah. With a sit of boiling water, it's not so bad. You just like a little foot massage.
You got to pee on it for a bit.
Pee
on it.
That's what I'm told.
Break down the process.
Well, and in our group of whatever, there were probably 15 of us from the LA area down there, and Joy was in earnest probably the only nurturing character in that entire group.
Yeah.
So Hayden had the good fortune of...
Hayden was the first to get injured and the most lucky of the whole bunch.
Yeah.
Well, and when he got stranded, I mean, Joy was the one calling the weatherman and calling the radios, like trying to figure out where he was.
Like,
and the rest
part
of us
of the
were like,
race.
Fine, we got to fix the other bikes. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
Maybe
if you're just cruising around together, you ain't stranded anyway. You got a few guys with you.
Right. You make us race, and all of a sudden it's like we're leaving each other in the dust or whatever. Like Hayden and we'd get separated and then find each other during the 500.
It's just much more fun to on these. It's just an accomplishment to go down there and do that little tour. You don't need a $3 trophy.
Sure, but I do. I'm super glad I have a trophy.
It's funny you mention that. I've never gotten a trophy in my entire life. Little League and all that stuff. We grew up in another era where not, everybody didn't get a gold star next to their name or a trophy and what have you. And years into the La Carrera obsession, I came on as a navigator to help a guy in a 53 Lincoln who had run the race a couple times and had crashed out or blown up and had not gotten across the line. And God dang it, he desperately wanted to get a trophy. And so the organizer, the U.S. director of the race said, "I know you can help this guy. Get in and just do it." So I did it. We crashed. We didn't have any damage to the car, but we got back. By the end of the race, there were only 3 cars in our class. But son of a gun, in Mexico, the timing or whatever got screwed up. And on the final night, the big night, we're all dressed up. We're in Zacatecas. We're at the huge fiesta at the hotel in the Bull Ring. And they called another team's name for 3rd place.
Oh.
And Tom, my driver, almost started crying. And I stayed with the timers until 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had the Fortaleza tequila sponsorship, and I'm sliding them bottles and this. I said, you got to get me that trophy back. Well, they've already left for the hotel. They've got, how can we give you the trophy back? The trophy for me has become being there, that I have a beautiful wife and 3 loving children, and I can go do these adventures in Mexico and survive them. And live with some pain, like you guys riding your motorcycles. You get there's a toll on your body. Driving that old Land Cruiser, I mean, you feel it for weeks afterwards. Your back hurts, your this hurts, the neck pinched, this, arm problems, whatever.
You often hear, if
but
it was still
the
like
trophy is that.
Yeah, you hear that for sure. Back in the Baja still is back in the whatever you want to do. It is still 1968 down there. You can go and launch the bike from Ensenada to La Paz, and no one gives a shit where you are. It's the best fun. down that way. Like, it's still kind of lawless in a lot of parts, but not like unsafe. It's just there's no one there.
Yeah, and so I interviewed a guy that I met through the Baja XL, Pete Springer. He's been going to Baja since 1960, maybe 79 years old. He won the 1973 Baja 1000, which was the year that they stopped the race. NORRA and Score hadn't come in, NORRA had left.
Okay.
But there was the last race, and he won it that year, a Navigator and a Land Cruiser, so we became friends. And I asked him, what does Baja mean to you? And he says, it's just freedom. It's freedom. It's freedom from people telling you what you can and can't do.
Yeah, you can.
Joy's
you can
back,
lost.
smiling
Joy's back.
at us.
She's got tacos.
She's got a grin on her face and a beautiful Barber jacket.
Joy just happened to miss our little love session, telling her how great you were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Where's the taco shop affected by coronavirus?
No coronavirus activity at the taco shop.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, Baja's just the first time I went down there actually was on a sort of photo shoot sort of thing where we were camping and taking pictures and hanging out, and of course we got skunked on waves, but we got to ride a little bit, and I was just like, I guess that was my first riding experience in Baja, and I was like, this place is pretty wild, like pretty cool, and no one really cares that you're there. You're just kind of doing your own thing.
Well, just don't be a dick. You know what I mean? Just
be a normal, like just have a good time and be respectful. If you don't blast, there's like little houses on farm ranches. Like maybe you don't blast them with dust. You open it up when you're out of town a little bit, and just do all that. Yeah, there's room for everything.
And to go race along the beach and go get to do that stuff.
Yeah,
there's no beach racing in California, is there? Like proper beach racing.
No. No, they don't let you do that anymore.
Yeah, it's just a different world down there. I really enjoy. I've never been to the mainland, so I can't really speak to that. But yeah, the further south you get, the more fun it is as well. You get a few hours outside of Ensenada. It really opens up down there. And even though I'm riding down, was it the 500 last time? I remember being lost in the middle of like a sand wash somewhere, looking for Scott. I'd double back 3 times, no navigation, no clue where I was. And a guy rode up on a horse.
Wait, and now let's start there. And a guy rode up on a horse.
A guy rode up on a horse, and I followed him. He took me back down to to these guys at the checkpoint.
Wait, I'm looking for my friend Scott. Have you seen him? The last time I saw him, he was going over his handlebars and leaving his wallet behind.
Basically, yeah. No, and that's...
not a lick of Spanish, but I was just like, other guy, one of these, and follow me. Took off after the horse.
And that's funny, because speaking of that, when we got separated on the 500, I mean, it was day one. We made it through all the beach stuff, and then we're crossing over. And that was just this whole thing where, there's a fork in the sand, and only one of us has a GPS working at that moment. And we're like, we're separated. So then Hayden's talking to a cowboy, and I'm riding up to like high ground, looking for like a dust trail. And I was like, it's kind of, it's odd, but you just like transport it in time. And like, no, I have a cell phone that doesn't work right now. I have a GPS that's useless because I'm looking for my friend.
Worried, you're never that worried. I was never worried.
No, you're just, you're not going to, it's not like you're stuck in traffic somewhere and someone's going to clean you out. Like, no, you're just out in the wilderness and you just got to keep riding for another 10 or 20 minutes and then you'll link back up because the trail just leads to the same place eventually. Yeah.
And you've got to use your wits and your brain to figure it out. And I think the interesting thing about, my experience, La Carrera, I was out by myself a lot. 100-something cars from around the world. I never saw them because I was the slowest guy.
Right. And that was Hayden in my experience. We weren't staring at each other. We were lost.
I don't know how many vehicles were how many bikes were in your class or how many bikes were in the bike group total. But I'm sure they rode off and left you guys rapidly.
You were stranded back there.
Rapidly. So they start off, every minute or something, and they're gone, way gone. And the two of you are doing your own thing. And then somewhere behind you guys is, I guess, where we were in the safari thing. But I was all the way at the end of that pack mule. And, you just think, Well, if we get lost, you can always just sort of look at the sun and figure out which direction. And my rule in Baja is just look for the most current tire tracks and just try and figure that out. But it must be a little different when you're jiggling your eyeballs out on the bikes.
It's a funny thing. I mean, and
you don't have 2 cases of tequila with you.
You don't have 2 cases of tequila.
In case it gets bad.
Yeah. It's dusty as hell. Especially the night time, and it's proper dark, and it's like country dark. There's no town lights in the distance. It is pitch black,
scary, dark.
And we was going up some back track because you got to get back to town. See, this is just all the benefits now of a Land Rover that you can just pitch up on the side and not have to do that again.
Right. Yeah, we could go do that.
Because we went
just
through
bring a tent. You're like, they're fine.
Middle of the night, and I guess we went through. Okay, we got into town. We did the same part of the course the next day, and the truck our truck driver says, "You did that last night quicker in the dark." And I was like, no, we didn't do that section in the dark. He's like, no, you did. That was the exact same section. I was like, no, this was all like cliff edges, you'd ride off into the oblivion. He's like, same section. Middle of the night when you can only see 3 foot in front of you ain't really worried about the cliff edge.
Yeah, that's one thing with the vintage bikes. If if we could get a little bit more lighting out of that charging system, I'd be thankful. Because that was, I'll say, and that's another great part of Baja. When you're out there and there's no town. Hey, Cody. Cody's thumping the floor. We're running late, essentially, off-road race, quote, late in terms of timing. And Hayden and I probably had 80 miles to go out of 250 for the day. And the sun's going down. And I kid you not, that was probably the most beautiful sunset we could have ever hoped for that we didn't look at. And the sun went down. The sky turned this really. As a photographer,
he was a kid. He had a camera with him, and it never came out the bag.
I didn't take any pictures after contingency. And that's not kidding. We were riding, and the sky went purple. And I was like, if this was any other situation, I would stop and I'd take a bunch of photos. I'd say, hey, Hayden, ride past right here. We're gonna get this great picture. No, we're racing, and so we're going. The light's getting dark.
Just to stop and camp in some of them spots, just to spend an hour in them. But you're blasting through. You're like,
crack a beer.
Great spot to have.
Yeah. Just soak it in, and that's I think that's the difference between the race and the adventure. And we.
Well, the good thing about the race is it shows you places that you're like, I'm going to come back and see that pine forest.
We definitely saved those race maps for sure because there's spots. I mean, But to Hayden's point, that was crazy. We did. I think about 70 miles of that first day for the 500 in pitch black with our crummy little lights.
It is so dark.
It's dark.
And my truck doesn't have lights, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I can see 6 feet in front of me, and I am scared to death of everything that's out of that.
And everything's rattling, range. And there's
you're on a course made. You're on a course made for a trophy truck. You're on a course made for.
We're just slowly sinking into the sand as we're moving forward,
or at least a course made by a trophy track, because you can tell when they've been through. Right. It's like dinosaurs have rampaged through the damn thing.
And the Baja 1000 had been a week before, because there were still 400. Markers. There were still markers on the road, which was screwed us up a little. To see these other arrows for when the Baja 1000 and the NORRA.
That was a hell of a task, That was, like you said.
That was amazing. But we got, the chase guys caught us. I can't remember if I might have crashed or something happened, but the chase guys caught us, and they were, this is vintage racing, and I love it. The chase guys show up in this beautiful truck, and they're like, "Are you guys okay?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're fine." And they're like, "Okay, well, do you want to keep riding?" And we're like, "Yeah, well, the bikes are still running, so let's keep going." And they're like, "All right, we'll hang back. If you need us, we're back here." And they just let us go and look, the course is done. The day is over. It's just you guys out here in the middle of the dark. So they're going to keep everything set up for you. And when you show up, they will turn the lights on at the arch, the blow up arch thing. And so
we did get the arch. They did move it on.
And it was hilarious, but we did that. And like Hayden said, we did that section in pitch black faster than we did in the daytime the next day. But pure delirium. I think we spent 14 hours on the bike.
It was too much.
Off-road, and just having a real hard time navigating. we were trading off leading depending on whose phone had more juice to run navigation. And, it was...
That's the problem when you have somewhere to be in it, like that.
Any other situation, we'd just be hanging out. I'll just start a fire.
Start a fire, pull out that sleeping bag, open a bottle of tequila.
Wake up when after the sun goes and just do
the spots we rode through. That was the problem. You just want to stop a lot. That trip should have took 2 weeks, not 28 hours.
Yeah, that definitely.
It's the problems with our modern life. So we don't have the 2 weeks to devote to these proper activities, riding vintage bikes and driving vintage vehicles through Baja.
Yeah. Well, I think that
goals. #goals.
Yeah, goals, and I think it's about
doable.
Making time.
It's not that bad. It's really not that expensive.
And that's the nice thing about going to Baja. It's not like you're going to Paris and you're spending $27 plus per small meal. Like you can go down to. It's not cheap like it used to be cheap, but you can still go down there and enjoy yourself and, go out to a nice dinner and not break the bank. And a nice dinner is just hanging out with a family-run restaurant, and that's I think the charm of it is that you can go down there and take a week and not even get that terribly far from where we are right now. You can adventure as far as you want, but you don't have to go terribly far to be away from a typical urban environment and just enjoy yourself in the quiet and not really be bothered and not bother anybody else.
Joey's got tacos.
Yeah, we should jump on the tacos here, and then if we still have time to finish up, we'll finish up.
Yep.
But I don't want to
Sounds good.
have cold tacos. Yeah, so we've just had tacos, and thank you very much Joy for bringing those in. Why don't you introduce yourself? We've got a fourth here on the Slow Baja podcast. Joy's joined us.
Yeah, I'm Joy. How did you guys introduce yourselves? Joy Lewis. I'm the wife / friend. I'm
Team
the
captain.
taco wrangler / pit and parts girl. Is what it feels like.
Also very
nurse.
Crew chief,
rider as well.
Half of this podcast has just been talking about you.
Oh, geez.
Triumph Cub racer extraordinaire.
I don't know about that, but yeah, no, it's fun. Baja, before even going down with these guys and doing the vintage stuff, I had been running Chase with a good friend of mine who did the full-on Baja 1000, and he would Ironman that. So I would do the pre-run for his events. And
we're important too, Joy.
I know. but that was a little real deal.
The proper Baja race.
Oh, man.
This is so good. Now we get to dig on Joy.
But I think, whether it's that and pre-running or whatever, or doing what we did, I feel like you always come back with some kind of crazy story. I won't forget my pre-running was okay, you head out, here's a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and I'll see you in 3 hours at this GPS coordinate with fuel and any spares or whatever. And, inevitably find a place to pull off the road and dig the Sprinter up to the axle in the sand. I'm like, shit, I only wear a sombrero and a bathing suit. I hope someone pulls me out. But Mexico, that's everybody is just so great, and there's just such this sense of camaraderie, and I love it. So yeah, you stand out on the side of the road with a cold beer, and someone inevitably pulls up with a winch strap and gets you out, and you don't skip a beat. So I don't know, I love Mexico. You get stung by a stingray and in the middle of a motor swap, and you don't skip a beat.
and love happens.
Yeah, I know.
I'll also say that the best shower I've ever had was on that beach on the Bay of LA in a tent. They put a shower up in a tent, and it was just a hot shower and the windiest night. There was gale force. I was sleeping under the truck, and I got the shower, and I remember just being naked and the canvas flapping there, and it was scalding hot water. It was the greatest shower I've ever had in my life.
And we saw you in the morning, and it still looked like you hadn't
Yeah,
showered at all. You guys look like hell.
They looked rough. We stayed in a posh hotel down the road, and we woke up the next morning and they were picking sand out of their noses, and it's brutal.
Sleeping under a truck in the windstorm on the beach, it was pretty. After doing a motor swap in the sand, you guys were. It was pretty. What's the word? Bleak. Might be that morning was a bleak one.
A bleak morning in Baja. Hey, while we were
on the beach, with this beautiful. We're on the beach in Baja.
When you look
like,
around, you're like,
incredibly
it ain't that
beautiful.
bad.
It's not that bad, but when you saw your faces, it's like, I don't think you guys slept. That's too bad.
While we were having the tacos that Joy brought us, lovely tacos and quesadillas, Scott, you were talking about the 500 with my good friend, my new friend, your stepdad, Dave, and about how easy it was. Just the round trip, getting here, bikes in the back, what have you. Could you just recap that? When you left, I don't know, you went over the handlebars 6 times or something.
Lost my wallet. I did
lost
great.
your tool roll, but both of those things were found.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that part, but I'll give you a head. No, I'm just kidding. Our trip for the 500 was really cool because the way they set up the course, we always started and ended in Ensenada, so we didn't really have to caravan too far. We could have all of our stuff, stationary overnight. And our main, we left Wednesday, did tech on Thursday, and raced Friday, Saturday, and then we're home on Sunday. I mean, it's very...
Yeah, we were down there and through the border. I mean, it took, 15 minutes to get through going and coming back.
Yeah.
It wasn't set up.
It was super easy. I mean, even getting down to Mexico when we, they looked at the bikes kind of funny and we said we were with the race. And they looked at the bikes funny and realized they just didn't want to deal with us. And they're like, whatever, go. So we just, we pushed on through, and coming back, it's great because you're dirty and you're a little tired, and the border crossing guys are like, welcome home, high five. It was pretty great. And so, I mean, people build it up as if it's like a big trek, and at least where we are, I mean, it's half a day's drive to be in Ensenada, and kind of at the gateway of all of northern Baja. It was fun. Baja's great. I mean, for that, it's actually pretty simple. And I think, speaking of for this year, our temporary crew chief, David, he'd been talking about NORRA. Yeah, your new friend, David.
Tequila in the Wilds with Dave.
Yeah.
I don't think Davey said it was easy. I think he said it was easy if he did it.
David would say that.
Yeah.
we made David sit on the side of the road for like 5 hours.
It would have been easy for him to do it.
Yeah.
But also my impression from that was where the 1,000, there's so much logistics that goes into point to point, that kind of point to point route, where I remember us so many times saying, we're racing. Like there were times we're on the road, where the special section might be cutting across somewhere, but we had to do the roundabout long way. And I remember us just flying through Mexico where it got, sketchy in places. Of course, inevitably you hear someone hit a horse and their whole trailer went off the cliff, or, it gets gnarly. But the point in his experience where he just has to sit around and faff for 4 hours while you guys make your way through the silt beds.
Yeah, he had he was funny. Like, David was really excited when you guys pulled up and had some tequilas with him, because I think he'd probably been pretty lonely out there for a bit. Joy couldn't come with us on that one, and which was probably a sad day for David. But ultimately, I think Joy probably dodged 4 hours of conversation on the roadside with my stepdad. But he was a good sport. He's an off-roader at heart for sure. And so when the opportunity came, when we knew Joy wasn't going to be able to come with us on this trip, like the next best person I knew that could handle logistics, and if we gave GPS coordinates and a rough timeline, like we knew he'd be there.
But he had the best time down there because he locked in with the race controller, so he could kind of track us around.
Oh, of course, because he knew all the radio frequencies. He was already dialed. He was more prepared than we were 3 years ago. You know what I mean? Like he was already ready. He was just waiting for someone to ask him to go. So he was jammed. He's like, "Oh, me and the weatherman are buddies."
Yeah, he's like, giving me weatherman
updates.
You are, Yeah.
So yeah, he's like, "Oh, he's in my Manx club." And I'm like, "Of course he is." So yeah, that was funny. So I mean, you always, and ultimately, you build good relationships with your crew and your team that way, and you always come back with something funny, whether it's a stingray or feeding my stepdad street tacos and peanuts in the middle of the night in Ensenada. Like it was.
And what was great. What did he say?
I just remember getting up in the morning and running out of the bathroom saying, "I'm running rich."
It's like gearhead, gearhead slam.
I've never heard that.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, he came home and told me, and I was like, okay, we got to make that.
That dude definitely is he's like a dirt dog. Like that dude is just an off-roader. Like he has a whole other vocabulary we didn't know existed.
Well, Joy, tell us a few Baja tales before we wrap this wonderful podcast up.
Gosh, I don't. I mean, I hate to repeat anything you guys already covered, but no, Hayden and I had met just. We had literally started making out 2 weeks or so before Baja, a week and a half or so, and Hayden, we did it sounds like you guys talked a little bit about that motor swap was at the Bay of LA, right?
Yeah.
But it was funny. Hayden had that Stingray. I broke out my jet boil because I always want to make tea on the road, regardless of where I am in the middle of the desert. I want a cup of tea. And so it came in handy, boiling water for Hayden's foot. But then they, slept overnight, like we said, under the truck in a windstorm. It was crazy. Woke up the next day and his teammates started the race. So after that first special section, our guy came and went, and we hung out for a little bit, and Hayden's kind of frothing.
This is a guy called Nick Ashley, and we love Nick. And Nick raced the Paris-Dakar back in the 80s, but Nick's an older gentleman now, and he's got different priorities in racing.
Right. So they're weighted in. And I'm sure Hayden, I know, was seeing red because he was like in race mode at that point. Like, where the hell is he? What's going on? Well, we ended up taking off and not waiting to see it. But by the time Nick pulled up, he said something about, well, I had to stop for a shit and I met the nicest couple. They made me coffee. And
this is in the middle of the race course. He did it twice.
2 shits, he says. Oh, and I
2 different couples, and he's like, and I met this guy when I was here 20 years ago.
And that just too is testament. Like you only have to meet Nick Ashley once, and he's one of your best friends and someone that you will never ever forget.
Yeah.
You have dinner with that man once, and you're
there's plenty of characters down there,
But I just remember, so we hear that, Nick pulls up and says, well, it doesn't matter anyways, I broke the clutch. And Hayden's like, I don't fucking care. And trying to shove his, Stingray swollen foot into his boot, pulls the liner out, throws his big old motocross boot on and hits the road. And was that 160-mile special section? It was through like a river wash. So he just ultimately ended up frying the stator about 20 miles out from the end of the day, I'd say. At that point, though, the trophy trucks had caught up. And, I'm in, where were we that night? I don't even remember what town we were in. Our guy had come in. The other guys had come in. Okay. And so I'm tracking him, trying to keep track of where he is, checking him with the weatherman. And, everyone's saying, oh, yeah, he broke down. Drivers are saying he came in and waved him on. And so, I go into the NORRA folks and I'm like, he's stuck. We need to pull his, what's his GPS? We need to get someone out there chase to pick him up. Well, by that point, the sweep crew was at the bar and they're like, they didn't tell us there were any bikes out there. Sorry, everyone's half in the bag and we're done for the night. And now you can't go backwards up the course because trucks are coming in. So he's going to have to say, I was like, are you kidding? What? And, so I'm in the office. I'm trying to keep track of everybody. And they're like, just don't worry about it.
I'll be honest, on my end, it was far less stressful.
Yeah. Ours, because we're like, fuck. And his teammates like, well, we're out of the race then. Like whatever, happened. I don't know. So I talking to them, and the guy I'll never forget says, don't even worry. He's probably shacked up with some Juanita. 9 months from now, little Jose is going to be running around. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
So there's we'll set the scene here. So Hayden's sleeping in the dirt, perfectly fine with doing so. Joy's freaking out that he's going to get run over by a trophy truck. The NORRA people don't care. His race team is super bummed because now they're not in the race anymore.
Yeah.
And the state of affairs, it's so Mexico. Yeah.
Redoing the whole primary and everything for our racer.
Right. And and I was just changing oil and air filters, kind of oblivious. Like Joy would show up and I'd see her pacing in the parking lot on a phone and then disappear and then come back. And we're like, man, sounds stressful.
I'll tell you, that was one of the most comfortable night's sleeps I've ever had.
Well, so then what's funny is
now.
as I'm in there, I end up talking to some local guys, kind of picking up what's going on. He's helping with the race, but he comes over and he's like, saying where about is he? And so I show him on the satellite where he is, and he says, I know someone, I think a cop in the village, 2 hours away from there. I'll see if I can't get him to get there. So sure enough, we know by the time we hear from Hayden again, a day and a half later, he says, yeah, I was woke up by some cop with a Gatorade and like an expired Cliff Bar. And at that point, someone in the middle of the night had come put a blanket over him. And then, so he said, help's on the way. Basically, they're coming for you. And his teammate had to double back and drive all the way around to come pick him up. So it was 22 hours, I think.
It was something like that, yeah.
And by the time they found Hayden, he was in the
put on weight?
Yeah. Yeah, he was like in that, the little town, someone's house. They brought him in, and everyone from the town brought him empanadas and tacos. He said he was shoving them in his backpack just so it didn't look rude. And then by the time they found him, he was drinking like a boxed milk in the school, teaching kids about England.
It's amazing. I mean, moral of the story, Joy cares a lot more than everybody else.
Yeah.
And second, that's
how
like
you
the
look
Baja
at things, you know what I mean?
experience.
Like that was way more fun than finishing that stage.
No, absolutely. Well, and if you think about it, I mean, if you were to, step back a generation or two, I mean, in earnest, like that's how people stay in Baja. Mm-hmm. And that's how expats happen. You're like, actually, this way of life rules. I'm just going to stay here. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we're lucky to have Hayden back. But there was a moment where I'm sure he thought, this is pretty chill.
Yeah.
Well,
I could take dirt naps all the time.
Didn't you get stuck at the border too? So it was like everything was trying to keep him in Mexico. He got detained at the border and, all the good things.
Yeah, the year with 1,000 was a little more
that was completely my fault.
You didn't have a green card yet, did you?
I had a green card, but I just didn't take it.
Wasn't it like ex-wife tried to rescind sponsorship, and so it got all stuck, and
it got messy.
Happens.
Real life, yeah,
but still worth the trip.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that's the important thing, is to be here looking back fondly on what many people would say, wow, that's the worst case scenario. I had to sleep out in the dirt, and I remember looking at the first published rules for the NORRA 1000 that didn't happen. I think it was 2008 or 9. They tried to get it off the ground and it didn't occur. And you had to have a sleeping bag in your vehicle. And I thought, oh, this is for me.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that separates people, right? I mean, that's
okay.
If you want to draw like a line in the sand, to pardon the pun, but that's ultimately like how you separate two types of people. There's people that are totally okay with being like, oh, well, it didn't go as planned. I guess I'll just crash here and then I'll figure it out tomorrow. And then there's people that idea sounds like a nightmare and anxiety. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's two types of people in the world if you're going to divide it that way.
But, I mean, there's both ways to do it as well. And, I mean, for my thing, the way I got down there, Joy tells me that when she got down to the end, like, she's the best hotel I've ever stopped in. I'm sitting in this.
That is true. That hotel was legit. But that's the thing. I mean, yeah, you could go. Maybe that's another gem of Baja. You could spend one night sleeping in the dirt in a windstorm, and then one night later, it's $100 a night for a 5-star resort on the beach with tacos being served to you while you're swimming in a pool. You know what I mean? Like,
what's not to like?
I mean, that was
for everyone.
That was pretty great. I mean, that actually, now that you bring up that, I mean, that rules too. I mean, there's only. That's one I love that about that trip. That was a great little send off. And to speak of Nick Ashley one more time, I hope he listens to this. He takes a deep dive on the podcast. But Nick had finished that, and one of my favorite photos from that whole week is Nick Ashley pouring a Bud Light over his head in a can. Like, he opened it and he crushed the can while holding it over his head. And he's just like, he's always put together. He's always got good hair. He's dressed well. And this is just dirty motocross Baja Nick Ashley covered in Bud Light of all things. And then when we went from the finish line to the hotel where we checked in, and then I think 8 minutes later, I found him passed out on a marble floor in his gear. Like, he hadn't even taken off his boots, I don't think. Like,
that's right. I was pulling his boots off.
Yeah, we're like trying to make him more comfortable while he's asleep on a marble floor. Like, it was crazy.
Scott, he had to take a shot 2 shits.
before he laid down.
That's the next Hello Engine T-shirt.
Yeah.
The Nick Ashley.
Nick Two Shits Ashley.
This is the special Nick Ashley 2 shit shirt.
That's your.
Modeled by Joy in the field. Hey, so
That
let's
could be a special. That could be a special sponsorship award.
let's go around the table here and just say where folks can follow you and whatnot, and we'll wrap this up. And I really want to say thanks a lot for the hospitality and making some time on this rainy day when everybody's so socially distant. And here we are, all
The three of us on a couch.
cuddled up in a couch with a dog under my jacket, with this wonderful dog here.
It warmed up to you pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
Surprise.
It's because he can't see you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I have a blind dog too.
Yeah,
Who just likes the
sweet
way I smell.
Ollie.
I smell like tacos.
Yeah.
Joy, go ahead. Start us off.
Yeah. I mean, I'm Joy, like I said. I guess you could follow me at Mouthful of Joy. Not my porn name, but the name of my future bakery.
Mouthful of Joy. My future baker. Okay.
Or, as I'm tagging along with these two on adventures.
Yeah, Joy's always making stuff happen and actually making sure we need to be where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. Yeah, I couldn't get through a lot of that shit on my own. Need someone to keep on track. But yeah, I'm Hayden. I guess Hello Engine is my Instagram, and I'm just a motorcycle mechanic up in Santa Paula.
And I'm Scott, and I'm a fan of Hayden's and Joy's, and they're a couple of my best friends. And Hayden's bashful because he builds some really incredible motors, and Hayden's a lot better of a rider than I am. And so I think I test his motors better than he does because I try and ride them upside down more often for another day. And anyways, yeah, my Instagram is SG Toepfer. You might be able to spell it. You might not. It's totally cool.
It took me the longest time. I always thought it was Sergeant Toepfer. I screwed
it's
up. I was Sergeant.
If you type in SGT into Instagram, it might pop up and it might not. It's fine.
And Scott's part of the reason Hayden and I even together.
And Scott's a professional photographer and a damn good one.
Except I don't take pictures when I race because I never come home with anything good. I have a picture of tech inspection and then I'm home. Whoops.
Driving a Land Cruiser, it's hard to make good photographs as well. It's maximum.
Well, you're not there for the photographs, really, are you?
No, and I think that it's a funny distinction. Because working in the motorcycle industry, it's like you go down to do these races and people expect you to be shooting or something. But it's like, I'm here to try and finish. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, if you
have a
get
good
time to stop and take a bunch of photographs, you didn't do the trip right.
Yeah, man, I'm racing. I got to try and catch you.
Well, the funny thing I talk to my Mexico adventure buddy Ted about all the time. We used to go to Baja in the 80s when we were college kids. And I said, remember we used to just go to Baja and we would do stuff and not have to post about it or talk to anybody about it? I'd shoot film and then develop it months later. It's just, we just did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's something good about just going and doing it.
And we saw it months and months later when we were there years ago.
The video stuff? Oh, yeah, we did that. I have it. It's sitting there. No one ever,
in a shoebox.
Yeah.
Yep, I have a lot of photos from that trip that no one ever really saw the light of day because X, Y, or Z. But hopefully, that one time I got to peek into Bruce Brown's film collection, and that man had stacks and stacks of film reels in a cupboard, not organized, barely labeled, and I was like, I want to be there's certain aspects of Bruce's life that I'm like, yeah, I would. That's me. That's a life goal. And there's other parts of it where I was like, but we all have our our parallels.
And one more lap around the coffee table here. What does Baja mean to you, Joy?
Oh gosh, to put them first, let me think on it. No, I think we always say Baja is probably a lot like California was 50 years ago, and I think there's something really charming about that. So yeah, I love it down there. There's just a sense of, vastness and comfort. I've never felt scared down there. I've always felt, well fed and well rested and kind of in awe of stars are brighter and tacos are better.
The stars are brighter and the tacos are better. Are you sure you're not in advertising?
Yeah. Well, this is the copywriter over here.
Yeah,
The tacos.
I just don't have anything to say. Let me just pull this note in my pocket.
You know, a wise woman I knew said once, "The stars are brighter and the tacos are better." Baja.
Your turn.
Motto. Yeah. I mean,
Hayden, I always wanted to know the answer to this. Where does the phrase "mad dogs and Englishmen" come from? What's the genesis of that? Do you know?
only mad dogs and Englishmen stay out in the midday sun.
Only mad dogs and Englishmen stay out in the midday sun.
Yeah, and
What's the
I think
origin of
I think that's probably true. You know, I think that's probably from that like early days of like empire building, where you know the locals obviously wouldn't be seen out in the Sahara in the middle of the day, but we'd be marching across in desert boots and silly hats.
Mad dogs.
Yeah. But Baja to me, I always have the best time down there. Like, and I like tell the story, some of the stories now, and I've only been there a couple of times. But it's all you talk about whenever you talk about like an adventure you've been on. It's Baja, you know, straight to it. Yeah, it's still so. It seems so like untamed down there. Still, it's still you grow up watching like Sergio Leone films, and it still looks like that. You know, down there. I love it.
For me, like Baja, I think is as easy as you let it be. You know, you can go down, you can plan every minute of your day during the week or for a vacation or whatever you want to do. And Baja is just one of those places where you can kind of freeform it a little bit. And there's always a way to make something work, and you don't always have to have a perfect plan. So I think it just represents a more looser way of life, and it's a little more freeform. And if you're one of these people that, you think of the phrase like go with the flow, like Baja is that place. You know, it can be as adventurous or mellow or crazy as you want it to be, you know, and I think that's what we're talking about with like the racing. Like it can be intense. You can be super intense.
And you can buy a ceramic cock at the border on your way back in.
You know,
That's so true.
Used to just be a monkey on a surfboard back in the day, but yes, you can.
Speaking of, David loved that.
Large-breasted mug.
Yeah.
You just need the large.
Yeah, or you can buy cold churros, like from a super aggressive guy.
Yeah.
Don't get the churros.
Don't feign interest though, because you are coming home with a cock.
Don't even side eye the ceramic penis in the corner because it'll show up in the window at the border.
Wow, Scott, I think you're onto something profound there when Hayden dropped that bomb.
It's so good. No, it's probably better because I'll wax poetic in like a foolish way. So it's better that way.
All right. Well, for the Slow Baja podcast.
But what about for you?
From Santa Paula. Well, you know, I think so. I was just thinking about what Scott was saying about being so wound up. There's a trip that I took with my girlfriend, now wife of almost 25 years. 1993, we're on my nearly new BMW Perry Dakar, and I'd been in Baja with my buddies for a week where I was riding around on that, and there's a crummy old VW Beetle from the 60s and a International Scout and a Volkswagen Camper. So it was kind of a motley group of four of us rolling around together. And then I rode up to San Diego, picked up my girlfriend at the airport, and I told her, you can only bring that little tiny book bag with you. That's all. You need a pair of boots and a swimsuit, and I don't know what else you can put in there, but that's what you need, and a jacket. So picked her up, rode down across the border, and we're on the toll road heading down to Ensenada, and it's a holiday weekend, and there's a lot of traffic. And we're just at the last toll booth before Ensenada, north of Ensenada, and an old guy in a car leans over and says, "Have I passed Long Beach yet?"
Oh my God.
And I'm like, pull over. Long story short,
there.
a guy with Alzheimer's had just gotten in the car and started driving and driven all the way somehow across the border and all that. So we had all these plans. We were going to get to here, and then we're going to get to there, and then we're going to get to there, and we're on my motorcycle 2-up, and we're camping, and we've got this and that. And it's like first day, it's like, okay, let's get to this hotel right here. I'm on a, payphone in those days with calling cards, calling the highway patrol in California, saying we've got this 80-year-old fellow here who obviously has some cognitive issues.
And great gas mileage.
And then great gas mileage. Yeah, too bad he didn't stop to use the restroom along the way, which was kind of smelly. But there we were, and it's like, well, now the highway patrol's coming in 4 hours, and we better get a hotel room here, which was half of our week-long budget to get that one hotel room. And then the next day, we're driving and riding again, and we got him off for the highway patrol. And we were feeling pretty good about our, our life, and we rode up to the Melling Ranch, which in those days, internet, it didn't exist. We're reading guidebooks, and we had read that if you rode to this working cattle ranch, 50 miles up a dirt road, they had a guest house and you could spend the night. Well, we rode 50 miles up this wash and dropped the bike 6 times in soft, sandy stuff, which was new in our relationship, that she was riding on the back of my motorcycle and we were falling over a lot, did a river crossing, all this stuff. And then we got up there and they said $100.
Oh.
What are you going to do? You're going to turn around and ride back? Right. It's like, oh. So the rest of the trip was just camping. We just camped on the beach, ate mangoes, drank Coronas, ate tacos, and we blew our entire week's budget in two unexpected lodging experiences. But that moment of out of control, didn't know what was going to be around the next corner, dropping a motorcycle, getting stuck in a river, digging it out, all that stuff. I don't know if that helped prepare us for like 3 kids and, careers and all this other stuff. But the draw of Baja for me has always been sort of what is around that next corner or what happens. And, you can sleep on the beach here and maybe somebody will come and collect, $20 from you. Maybe they won't. Maybe you're just sleeping on the beach and nobody cares. And the whole boondocking, and I've done it from the old BMW Perry Dakar to a Volkswagen camper to an old Land Cruiser FJ40 to, it's just a place where you can go and be whatever you want to be, and nobody really cares, especially if you're not a jerk.
Yeah.
So to tie this in, this woman never spoke to you again, or you married her.
Yeah. Well, that was the next trip, actually. We went back to Volkswagen Westphalia we'd gone up to Guadalupe Canyon, and I jiggled some sort of EGR valve or something loose, so I was having terrible throttle control issues. And it was also another... it was Holy Week, so Easter week, and so I'm driving in bumper-to-bumper traffic with very little throttle control. So it's throttle racing, hit the brakes, put the clutch in, and just it was just gnarly. And got back into Ensenada, and basically I saw a guy who had a Volkswagen-powered sandrail, and it looked like he kind of had a little shop, and I told him what the problem was. And he said, yeah, I can fix it. It was 8 o'clock at night. He said, I can fix it, but I don't have the parts. I'm not going to have the parts until Monday. And this was whatever, Thursday or Friday or something. So I'm like, fuck it. Have my van. I'm taking a taxi. We're going to a hotel. Hotel freaked out. I had the guy's card, but the hotel freaked out. Like, you left your van at this guy's, whatever. And came back on Monday. He had the part, had it fixed. Thing drove beautifully, but... got back to San Francisco, and it was clear out your drawer, pal. I've had enough of you.
Wow.
We sorted it out after that. But that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Wow.
That was it. So
and you find your tribe this way.
Yeah.
These are the trial by fire sort of things that that define relationships and the people you spend your time with, and it's always fun to see where life takes you when you do those leaps,
when you hit that like in and out just north of the border when you come back, like if the gang's still together, it was a good trip.
Right, yeah. If you don't leave, if you can all sit and hang out and have a burger on the U.S. side of the border afterward, you've finished well.
Well, there is something about that where you come back and it's all of a sudden snap your fingers. One side is this, the other side's all more civilized and the roads are better and all that, and you go to that first fast food restaurant and you have a modern bathroom where you can put the paper in the toilet or whatever you need to do, and the food that's going to not make you sick probably. And there, for many years, especially as a college kid, there's just this exhale of like, whew, made it, another Baja trip, only with scratches. Yeah. But now it really does draw me. And flipping Tijuana, I had a great day there a couple weeks ago where just the food's great and the people are great, and walked into a brew pub and there's the owner and we're talking beer for an hour, and it's just it's like, it wasn't like that when I was a drunk college kid, but now Tijuana's really grown up and it's very interesting. The food is really terrific. There's a lot to see there.
Yeah, and I think people blow past Tijuana, and they, in doing so, I think miss an opportunity for an interesting cross cultural experience. But that's, there's a lot of Baja to see, and there's a lot of, without getting too deep in this, there's these conversations about like people being scared or being taught to be scared and stuff like that. It's like, we talked about this a little earlier, but you be respectful and be aware of your surroundings. Like you can have a good time anywhere. I'm sure Bucharest is awesome too. I've never been there. You just go. I think people need to just sometimes take a little bit of a plunge and learn something about themselves. That's maybe a different discussion.
Well, I think on that profound note.
Yeah.
So you got it out in the end.
Yeah. Hey, wait a second. Let's talk about
We're going to have Joy for 30 more seconds to close out the Slow Baja podcast from Santa Paula. So thanks again, everybody.
Yeah.
Take us out, Joy, with a big smile.
Oh, gosh. Thank you for coming. And I can't wait for all of us to get down there and do a trip together. I think that's the next phase of this.
That was a good lead in.
We'll leave it there. Hey, you guys know what to do. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, rating, all that stuff. And if you missed anything, you can find the links in the show notes at slowbaja.com. I'll be back before you know it. And if you want to receive notices on new episodes, please follow Slow Baja on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for you old folks.